and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick from the City of Hampton, and today we're going to talk about flood insurance, who should get it, and what the city is doing to lower the cost of flood insurance for residents of Hampton. My guests are Greta Hawkins from Public Works and Hui-Shan Walker from Emergency Management. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
First of all, if it's okay, I want to talk about what is flood insurance, who needs it, and how do you get it? Because I think there's some common misconceptions about it. So, Hui-Shan, I'm going to hit you up. I know that there's also a regional campaign called Get Flood Fluent, and we're going to talk about some of their materials as well, because it's a very helpful way to kind of figure things out. So first of all, is my house covered if there's a flood, if I have good homeowners insurance, right? I think I'm safe.
So Robin, actually, everyone in this region should definitely have flood insurance. And if you just have homeowners insurance or renters insurance, without flood insurance is a separate policy that insures against flooding. And so
that's sneaky. That's not fair, I think. Don't you think it should cover everything? No.
It is a separate policy, and you really need to reach out to your insurance agent. And it is underwritten by the federal government, the National Flood Insurance Program, and so it is separate policies. If you have a mortgage, you're generally already required to have flood insurance if you are in a special flood hazard area.
So then comes the next question. I'm not in the special flood hazard, so I don't have to get it, right?
So if your mortgage is paid off and you're in a special flood hazard area, that is a decision that you are making, but we encourage everyone to have flood insurance. The other is if you're not in a special flood hazard insurance, for peace of mind, we still recommend that you actually have flood insurance, but it is at lower premiums. Mm-hmm. And there is a discount and everything like that. So, and remember, flood insurance is only covered on the structure up to $250,000 of your structure value, and $100,000 for your contents and personal property inside the house. So, if your value of your house is above that, and your contents is above those figures, then you may want to look at private, additional private insurance.
Supplemental that you'd still get.
Supplemental, yes.
So, the reason I think insurers don't cover it is because it's not cost effective. They're not gonna, come out ahead. It would put the total price, out of and the federal government does help subsidize it. It's not that's why it's not available in the private market for a lot of people, right?
There are private companies, insurance that do, and you do have an option to shop that, but the prices could be a little more significant without the government, backing the flood insurance. And flood insurance also, you have a storm coming, heavy rains coming, a hurricane coming, takes 30 days to go into effect. So you can't say, oh, the storm's coming, I would need to buy flood insurance right then. So we encourage everyone to look at it and consider purchasing flood insurance.
So let's switch now to Greta, who's been working on a lot of measures that the city has been doing, because if the city does certain things, we get a discount for our residents through the federal flood insurance program. Tell us about that, and tell us the new news that has gone into effect just a day or two ago.
It went into effect just yesterday, actually, May 1st. So the city does certain activities that help get us to a certain rating, which gets our residents a discount on their flood insurance policies. And before we were at a rating that got our residents a 10% discount, and we just got bumped up to the 15% discount.
Which is awesome, and I think one of the highest levels in the region, right?
Yes, it is.
I think Virginia Beach may have gotten at the same time we did,
yeah,
and
I think
that
about
is
the same.
Awesome, and it's been a lot of hard work.
Yeah, there's a lot of activities, there's a lot of coordination with FEMA to make sure we're getting all the points we need to get to that discount rating.
And so some of those activities are regulatory, like when you build a new house, it has to be a certain, I know they have a word for it.
It's the freeboard.
Freeboard. I'm like, what? Nobody understands that except a builder. But it means the floor has to be a certain elevation above.
Above their base flood elevation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, a lot of people didn't like that initially because it adds a little bit to the cost of a new home. But you can save that on the back end if your home is that high elevated. You're not paying as high for your insurance.
Correct.
But citywide, because that's a rule, it is one of the things that helped us do that. And education like this, talking to residents, sending out information is another thing that is helping on that rate.
Yes.
But that 15% discount doesn't affect everybody.
No, it's only for policies that are in the special flood hazard area get that 15%, and it's only when those policies come up for renewal. So it's not like you'll get it if you're in the middle of your insurance policy term. You're not going to get that additional 15% till it renews.
It's very confusing. And here's the other thing that I think is confusing to some people. If I live in evacuation zone A, does that mean necessarily that I am in the special flood hazard district?
So Robin, there are two different things. So
people don't get that.
It
it's
is.
hard.
So we just went through a mandatory evacuation, I would say exercise opportunity with Hurricane Florence last year. And so hurricane evacuation zones are A through D. The flood hazard areas have a lot more classifications, and they are on the flood insurance rate map. So those are what are used to determine your flood insurance. The evacuation zones are based on other transportation studies, engineers, and other things, and that's only for evacuation. That purpose has nothing to do with flood insurance. They're two separate things completely.
There's probably a lot of overlap, but not necessarily.
So if you want to look at it, Zone A generally is areas that flood in the city. We want to evacuate you. So it's highly likely that a lot of those areas are in special flood hazard, but they're not the
necessarily.
same.
And the evacuation zones are really only for hurricane flooding.
Yes.
There's all kinds of other flooding. Storm drains, creeks, things that...
Heavy rains.
Yeah. So there's really no way of knowing unless you go to a separate set of maps and look up where you are. And those, I am pretty sure you can get to from hampton.gov/flooding, and there's an explanation of all the different types of things there.
And for your property, if you want to go look at this, it's in the property assessment. There is a GIS layer, so you can go in there and yourself, and if you can't, call 311.
Oh, that's much easier.
And they can pull up which flood zone that you're actually in, just so that you know.
So Hui-Shan, if I'm not in the special hazard zone and my mortgage company isn't worried about it, why should I get flood insurance?
Well, I think flood insurance is like a little peace of mind. And if you're not required to have it, we're in Hampton roads. Everywhere floods. On a heavy, heavy rain day, the roads flood, parts of the city flood. There are areas that flood that sometimes don't flood, and then other times do, just depending on the weather. And so, for example, I'm not in a special flood hazard area, and I have purchased some flood insurance just for peace of mind, but it's not as expensive.
It's not. I know. That's true because I have it too. Even though I'm asking you all these hard questions,
Sure.
You've already convinced me in previous shows. And I can see the water from my house. Like, there is no guarantee. And it's, it's important. And if you've heard scary numbers about how much flood insurance costs, it isn't as much if you're not in the special hazard zone. It's not. And there's the statistics from the region that 1 inch of water in your house, 1 inch, costs about $25,000 to repair. And that's a lot. And if I don't have it, that's a scary, scary number for me.
And that's your homeowner's insurance will not cover it.
No. Or my contents.
Absolutely.
My furniture gets flooded if, the walls are damaged or rain or, caves in and gets the stuff on the walls or everything. It's a scary thing to happen.
Right. And by having the community rating system where we actually get these discounts, even if you're not in a special flood hazard area, the city gets a 5% discount for our residents. So the policies are only a few hundred, really, if you're not in the special flood hazard. But for example, if you are in a special flood hazard, I thought this was a great statistic, for every $3,000 in your insurance, and there are people that are paying that, and I, in the past, have paid significantly more than that. With the 15%, you are saving $450, which in the past, once you renew, in the past you would be paying, you would be saving $300. So we have increased that another 5% in savings. And I know there are folks in the City of Hampton that pay a significantly amount more, but this is our way of helping while you have to have flood insurance. And if you don't have flood insurance, one other caveat is that if you're dependent on FEMA, first it has to be a presidentially declared disaster, and we have to get selected and approved for individual assistance, which is different. It's very challenging to get, but if we do get it, like we did a few years ago with Hurricane Matthew, some folks got FEMA funding reimbursement. But if we had a total devastation, if you had to replace and rebuild your home, can you do it at the FEMA max of $34,000?
No, boy, nobody could, I don't think. And that probably doesn't even include does that $34,000 include the temporary living and all the things that has to happen while you rebuild? I mean, there's no way.
It's $34,000.
So that's real scary. And if you're a renter, it's not on your regular renter's insurance, but getting a separate policy for rental just covers your stuff inside is even a good bit cheaper.
Yes.
I haven't looked at that one, but I would assume that
I haven't really looked, but yes.
Yeah,
it should be, because you're just doing contents versus structure also.
Yeah. Well, so the other thing is people think of flooding and related to hurricanes around here because that tends to be when we have the biggest widespread problem. But rainfall amounts have been increasing pretty dramatically lately. And we've been getting, the heavy downpours at different times that have overwhelmed really different areas and areas, that aren't traditionally in the flood zone. So that's a big factor too for folks, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, if we get a big rainstorm during high tide, you'll have lots of areas flooding that don't normally. So it's all about the timing of the storms and what areas flood.
In fact, the flood fluent people say that 1 in 5, so that's 20% of the flood insurance claims in Southampton roads were from people, or the federal claims were for people who were not in the flood zone. So that's a big number. That's 20%.
And we really, as a region, are encouraging everyone to look at flood insurance. It does take 30 days to go into effect, but we have so much more growth and opportunity to help protect the citizens, and we're in this together. But one of the statistics I think the flood fluent folks also did was less than 5% of the, or approximately 5% of all the homeowners and residents in Hampton Roads have flood insurance. So,
are you kidding?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I didn't even see that.
It's on their front page, and so so there's a lot of room for growth, and I'm not sure how many policies we have, but we can encourage more policies.
So why do we care as a city what individuals do? It's their choice, right? They can choose to live their own way. Why are we as a city government involved in this? What do you think?
I think it's, after a disaster or rain, every disaster is personal to your house, your living, and your family. And whether it's a rainstorm, heavy flooding, or it could just be an isolated area of the city, you want to get back to normalcy. And this is for peace of mind. And as a community, we can help. I mean, we've got a lot of nonprofits. We've got a lot of folks in the area that want to help. But really just getting back to a basic wholeness, having insurance helps that. Mm-hmm. And then we all work together. I mean, and if there is a big hurricane, or if we get federal assistance, that's a piece of the puzzle. And then with flood insurance, it's another piece. And local government also helps as the advocate to help promote and get these programs and help the discounts and, save money for folks and things like that.
I think that the city does care about its residents, and a lot of people don't necessarily believe that. But also, I think we're limited in what we can do. And so taking care of your home and your possessions there's a federal level there when it comes to a disaster. The city can do a little bit, but there's some personal responsibility too. And encouraging people to understand their risks and to make smart choices is part of our role that helps the community.
Absolutely. And I believe in preparedness, and so we'll come
so
back.
Good
so we'll
it.
Definitely do that. But this is just one small part, And there's other things that folks can do, and we'll probably do another segment on how you can lessen the impact of floods and things and disasters for, by taking small actions for your house.
And those can also reduce your insurance costs.
Absolutely. They absolutely
all
can.
these things bundled together, and all of us working together can make Hampton a more livable, wonderful place.
Yes.
It is one of our big risks right now, and we all have to do what we can to mitigate and prepare and be prepared to recover if it does happen.
We are surrounded by water, and we want to live with water, and we want to be a resilient community. And so the good days are good. Sometimes there's challenging days, but other than that, I think as a whole, the community wants to be a good place to live.
Well, thank you both for the work you do. Lowering our rates is huge. I know you didn't do it by yourself. You cataloged it.
No, and we're doing more. We're going to continue to do activities and try to get that discount even more next time.
Oh, good. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for all your
Thanks
preparedness
for having us.
work. And thank you for watching. I hope you do understand it is very complicated. What's an evacuation zone? What's a flood zone? Am I in the high risk? If I'm not, do I need insurance? And the answer is you really should strongly consider getting insurance. And there's a way for you to learn more about it. It's called floodfluent.org. And we're going to close by letting you watch a video that will tell you a little bit more about the risks in Hampton roads, and you'll hear from two people who have been flooded recently. Thanks for watching.
We're so fortunate to be living in beautiful Hampton roads. But sometimes, all the water that's a tremendous source of business and pleasure here in coastal Virginia can become a big problem.
The house was basically devastated. Windows were blown out, 1 or 2 foot of seawater inside the house.
Flooding is the most common natural hazard, and floods here are a growing concern. Having flood insurance is a growing necessity. Do you have flood insurance?
I had no idea that water in my house could be as devastating as it was.
You don't have to live on the water or be in a high-risk flood zone to experience flooding. Whether your home is on the water, on a street with storm drains, or in a more rural area, you could be at risk of flooding.
What I would say to people is that it clearly doesn't matter what zone you're in. You need to be prepared.
You always know that it could happen, but you never think that it is going to happen to you.
Anywhere it can rain, it can flood. Period.
There were fish in the house. There were all kinds of debris, pictures, things that you can't replace. The front porch of the house was totally in a neighbor's yard about a half mile down the road.
The damage from just 1 inch of water can cost more than $25,000.
It is not the same as homeowners insurance, and I think it's really important for the homeowner to understand what is covered, what's not covered.
Most homeowners and renters insurance policies do not cover flood damage.
Having flood insurance is one of the important tools that we need to keep in our arsenal to prepare ourselves against something like this ever happening again.
Are you flood fluent? Contact your insurance agent or go to getfloodfluent.org for more information and to take the challenge. See if you're water-wise when it comes to having flood insurance, especially here in Hampton Roads.